my favorite novel is Don Quixote. And in Don Quixote, the noble knight Don Quixote, he has a woman named Lady Dulcinea del Toboso, but he has never really met this woman, and as is tradition with knights, and he has said that he loves her, because it is a knight's duty to have a lady love. And a knight without love is like a tree without leaves, he often repeats. And I have considered going this route myself. It is a good way to live in the delusional life. I stopped recording to go back and look more at the Freud, and yes, another striking example is, this is just what the Wikipedia lists as a striking example, but I remember this now that I've looked at it, is Freud says that you can't even come up with a random sequence of numbers that, after some kind of consideration, won't be seen to have some sort of reason and meaning to them. I really hope that I'm getting across with my ramblings that in the Freudian framework that I work with, just every single random event has some sort of meaning. People get on me, because I'll talk to them about how people are doing and saying things, and they'll talk to me about how I'm reading into every single thing like a stalker. And that's just how it is with everything, and it's really hard to escape the subjects that stress me out because my hobbies are dealing with those subjects. I can't go read Freud to forget about my relationship troubles, no. But also I'm really big into Chinese philosophy, and what does Chinese philosophy deal with? Well, often it deals with human relationships and how to fulfill them well. Or I can study epistemology. What does epistemology deal with? It studies how we know things and how we can make reasonable judgments. And honestly, I don't think we can make reasonable judgments. It's part of the way I make all of my videos, all of my content, all of my art. Part of it is the lasting influence of Freud, of just this idea that you can't say things at random no matter how much you try. I just assume that whatever I say, as long as I say it and force myself to say it, is going to be relevant. Again, I would really just recommend this book. It's a great book, The Psychopathology of Everyday Life. But not a great way to make friends, though. But, maybe it's a great way to make friends with psychoanalysis, because I don't think that I could imagine a life with someone who does not that anybody would want to spend any amount of time with me, but I just can't imagine. I know there's something of a meme to talk about people who say, these are the books that anyone needs to have read to have a conversation with me. But I think that it's kind of reasonable to a point. So, I am now going to bring Greek philosophy into the picture. And again, my goal is to paint a picture of schizo-flirting. The schizo-flirting that I have been working with pretty much for quite a long time. And it seems strange to say that this is something that I've been working with quite a long time, and to bring in these sort of influences that didn't come till later. But the past looks really funny when you're into these sort of things. I'm really into stalkers. I'm really into research. Well, no. Greek philosophy first, and then the stalkers will hopefully seem relevant here. So Sextus Empiricus, my favorite philosopher, is a Greek, or maybe he was a Roman. I think he lived sometime around 300 AD. I'm not checking. That's just a random number that I'm throwing out off the top of my head. And it's hard to say what he's famous for doing. His school is skepticism. And what does the skeptic do? Well, the skeptic doesn't believe anything. Maybe they do believe some things. Maybe they have a different definition of what belief is than we do. But basically, the skeptic doesn't believe stuff. Oh no. Okay, so they have a thing called the Agrippine trilemma. And the Agrippine trilemma is to take any point of proof, any point, and say it either needs to have a proof, you need to bring out some information support of it, but then that proof itself needs a proof, and so you can either just say it doesn't need a proof, but that's not a good argument, Or you can say the chain of proof goes on forever, but in that case you wouldn't know if it was proved or not. Or you could engage in some sort of circular reasoning where your proof is used to prove itself. I hope that what I said makes sense, but it probably doesn't. But more importantly, there is also the problem of criterion. How do we tell whether a thing is or is not true? Well, we need to have a correct criterion. We couldn't give a bad criterion. Like we could say, if a person wearing green says something, that means it's true. That wouldn't be a good criterion of truth. We need to have the right one. Well, in order to know if we have the right one, we need to have a criterion of truth that can tell us whether or not our criterion of truth is right, and so on and so forth. And there's an inability to find truth based on the difference in people's states. So some people think that old people know best, right? Okay. Some people say that old people are reliable sources of information. They're old, they have wisdom. But if we ask, is that a true statement? Who are we going to ask? Well, we can ask an old person or a young person. If we ask an old person, do old people have a reliable guide to truth? Are old people reliable guides to truth? Well, if the person says yes, they must be a reliable guide to truth to give a yes answer, otherwise it wouldn't matter. I mean to say that if we say the contrary, let's assume that old people aren't a good guide to truth. Well, then whether they say yes or no wouldn't matter, because their opinion wouldn't be a reliable guide. If I say that schizophrenic people are not reliable sources of information, and a schizophrenic person disagrees with me, I can't say whether they're true or not. I can't say whether they are or not a good source of information. These arguments might not sound particularly compelling, and they're not supposed to be, partly because I'm the one presenting them, and I'm admittedly not doing a very good job of it. But after going through just the 2,000-year-old debacle of philosophy, I've read a journal of a stalker. He was stalking a guy. He's fairly famous. I mean, people on the internet talk to him. He's stalking a guy named UTV on 4chan. And one thing that really struck me when I was looking at the documents he designed an entire city around the person he was stalking. He had taken quotes and little things that they said, and he turned them into buildings. He would have a big building that was just made out of a joke this guy made. And, I can say to myself, God, no matter how bad I am, I'm not that bad. And I regularly check in with people to make sure I'm not fucking crazy, right? I'm not crazy. I can deal with being crazy in relation to society, but not in relation to a romantic partner. There was one saying by a Roman, it might have been Seneca, one of the Senecas. I don't remember who it was, but he said that if the gods don't exist, we must all be crazy. And it makes the world seem crazy, the amount of prayer and sacrifice that we all do for nothing. And I feel like, knowing the variety of religious beliefs in the world, I feel like we need to accept that we are crazy in that way. But there's types of crazy that I can live with, and there's types of crazy that I cannot live with. It's something that people hear a lot, where I'm sure I don't need to tell you who Chris Chan is, where people look at Chris Chan and it makes me think, is that me? Part of what I've been trying to say, and I feel like I say this over and over again, is that I think that we just really have absolutely no way to know if we're delusional, if any particular thing that we see is a hallucination or something that's really there. I love Schopenhauer, and one thing that amazes me about his writings is the way that he seems to just be saying the same thing over and over again if you really look, and he tells you as much. It seems like there are just so many things that stand in the way of getting an accurate reading of people. It really seems like nature wouldn't really even have intended us to do such a thing. We don't seem to be built to be truth-grasping creatures. Never, ever, ever in my life have I pursued a relationship that the people around me thought was a good idea, or that the people around me thought that, the person was interested in me. But I just keep chugging along. I contribute to the schizo-flirting problem because I myself schizo-flirt with people. People often talk about, how schizophrenics, they see signs in everything. I might think, oh gosh, this person was flirting with me, but another person who isn't crazy might say, no, there's no way a person would try to communicate with you but like that. But the thing is that I myself communicate with people that way all the time. I will absolutely hide a love letter in the license plate numbers of the SUV driving in the freeway next to. I feel like now would be the best time out of all times for aliens to invade. And I would say so because any alien could absolutely pass off as a human just by being ironic. Haha, guys, beep boop, I got no social skills. I'm trying to investigate you humans. Imagine how easy it would be. I could very much be an alien. When I was younger, my parents used to tell me that I was a robot, and when they got upset with me, they would tell me that they were going to take my batteries out. I'm not going to make another overly long video, so I'm just going to stop my rant there. I keep having more audio than I have video, and then I add more video, and then I don't have enough audio, and also my phone is almost out of space and I don't really know what to do about it. Anyway, I'm just putting in something so that people have things to look at while I rant. This one time when I was a kid, I got fucked by a dog. It was a big dog with a big dong, probably bigger than most women will receive in their lifetimes. It wasn't consensual. I'm not a criminal. This one time, my uncle put tampons on his fingers and said that he was a robot.